I must apologise first because I'm literally shattered, having travelled from London back home this afternoon, and I can barely put one foot in front of the other. And today would have been my mother's 99th birthday anyway. Uh, Volodymyr Zelenskyy has arrived in Washington looking for tomahawks and hard security guarantees, and Donald Trump has offered praise, a promise to mediate, and studied ambiguity. The meeting sharpened a familiar pattern: Ukrainian urgency and American hedging, shaped by Trump's parallel courtship of Vladimir Putin. Trump pointedly cooled expectations about tomahawks. Hopefully they won't need it. Hopefully we'll be able to get the war over without thinking about tomahawks. He added the US might need those missiles itself, and that providing massive numbers of very powerful weapons is not easy. In short, no green light. Zelenskyy made three core points in front of cameras: ceasefire talks in any format, including trilateral, and NATO membership remains the strategic horizon to protect Ukraine after any form of ceasefire. And whatever the forum, Ukrainians need strong, credible security guarantees now. He paired this with a transactional offer: thousands of combat-proven Ukrainian drones in exchange for long-range strike capacity. This was an appeal to US interests, not charity. Trump called himself the mediator president, claiming to have solved 8 conflicts, and said this could be his 9th. He floated the president, and the president as the format, and spoke of a likely double meeting around a planned Budapest encounter with Putin. And the rhetoric flatters his image but leaves policy deliberately hazy. The tonal shift on the tomahawks has followed Putin's call with Trump, or Trump's call with Putin yesterday, and Moscow warned the US transfers would harm relations. Trump didn't rule the missiles out, yet he framed them as escalatory and best avoided if a deal is near. Kyiv and many Europeans read this as a familiar cycle in which Putin interjects and the US resolve softens. Zelenskyy emphasized institutions and guarantees. Trump emphasized personal chemistry and keeping adversaries talking despite bad blood between Zelenskyy and Putin. The risk is obvious: peace framed as a meeting of personalities rather than a structure that deters renewed aggression. But talking is always good if that somehow leads to a resolution. Tomahawks would vastly extend Ukraine's reach to strike Russian military structure at 1,600, 2,500 kilometers. They're not a silver bullet, but they would raise the price of Russian escalation and strengthen leverage at any table. That's precisely why Putin lobbies against them, why Kyiv keeps pressing. Zelensky's done deal and the broader mega deal pitch a two-way bargain. American missiles and air defense in exchange for Ukrainian mass drone capacity and tech that the US can integrate at scale. It's pragmatic and politically palpable in Washington, but it cannot override a presidential instinct to keep options open at least until after Budapest. Trump credited the First Lady with helping return displaced Ukrainian children via an open channel with Putin. Whatever the behind-the-scenes reality, the White House framed this as soft power success, undercutting the case for hard power transfers. Kyiv welcomes any returns, but it won't swap children for sovereignty. US messaging blended flattery for Zelenskyy with repeated hints that we're fairly close to ending the war without tomahawks. For Kyiv, that is a code for wait until the Trump-Putin summit. For Moscow, it's a signal that pressure works. For Europe, it's another reminder that their own funding and industry must cover any American wobble. If Budapest is held without Ukraine at the table, expect more caution on tomahawks and slower air defense deliveries. If Kyiv secures binding bilateral guarantees plus a defined munitions pipeline, Budapest becomes less risky theatre. If neither happens, Russia will test the gap between the US words and weapons this winter. Wars do not end because leaders get along. They end when aggression is made too costly to continue. Zelenskyy brought an alliance offer and a workable trade. But Zelenskyy asked for guarantees. Trump has offered vibes. Trump brought a camera-ready theory of peacemaking. Unless the theory is backed by tools that change the Kremlin calculus. Budapest will be a photo, not a pivot. Is Trump wrong to hesitate? Prudence is fine, but strategic ambiguity without material leverage invites delay tactics by Moscow that Moscow will exploit. And could drones substitute for missiles? Well, drones harass and badger. Tomahawks impose strategic costs at depth. Kyiv needs both to shift bargaining power. Does Putin want a deal? Of course he wants a deal. He wants Donbass. He wants conditions that validate gains. That's not a deal Ukraine can accept without enforceable guarantees and credible punishment for breach. If Tomahawks are an escalation, so is Russian terror against civilians. The question is, whose escalation does one choose to deter?